Hello, everybody. Hi, it's Graham Hughes here. This is the Hughes at 10. Must be 10 o'clock. It must be second lockdown. Yeah, great. So the good news is that Trump has finally, not conceded, of course, but they've started the transition process, which is good. I just noticed my camera isn't exactly level. Oh, that'll annoy me later. There you go. That's better. Get rid of this cushion. Go away. So yeah, he hasn't admitted he's lost, but he has allowed the woman who is supposed to just basically rubber stamp the whole process. He's allowed her to rubber stamp it, so the transition can start, because there's tens of millions of dollars worth of stuff that needs to be moved across, the security secrets. There's all kinds of stuff that needs to be moved from the old administration to the new one. And it was being held up because Trump was like, "Oh, I haven't lost. And do you know what? I really, really hate Donald Trump. And it's not just the fact that he's an odious human being who's admitted to assaulting women and has basically set the course of the world on a path to disaster. It's not just the fact that he's split up families and friends. There was a really good article. It was actually from the election, but I only read it today. I think it was on CNN, and it was like, is it worth it? That was the question it asked. Was it worth it? Was it worth sacking off your grandchildren or your niece or your nephew? Was it worth falling out with your mates for Trump? Some guy you've never known, you've never met. You chose this man, this monster of a man, over your family. But even more than that, it's the fact that orange gobshite couldn't even let us have a day where we were like, yes, it's over. The nightmare is over. He couldn't let us have that. He had to go, no, I'm not conceding. I'm going to take it to court to add to the worry. I have been worrying. Like 4 years ago, I had a lot more hair than this, right? I've been worrying the last 4 years about the future of my country and about the future of America, which basically dictates the future of the world, because America is still the most powerful country in the world. The future of the countries that are around Russia, the future of the Brazilian rainforest, the future of the Great Barrier Reef, the future of all this stuff has just been like this huge weight on my shoulders. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. And Trump being beaten by Biden should have just been it. Should have been that moment where you're like, okay, things aren't perfect. There's a lot of work to do, but we can start rebuilding. We can start getting things back on track now. America can come back into, back from the cold, and we can go forward. And he wouldn't even give us that, because he is the world's most gargantuan gobshite. And I really hope that he dyes his hair in jail. Dies with a D-Y-E. Not the other thing. Don't think that. I would never wish that upon anyone. Anyway, I'm having a drink tonight because it is my 3-year anniversary with Catherine. Yay! So I've had a bit of champagne. I think it was Prosecco. We're not that posh. And now I'm having a beer. And I'm talking to you. So aren't you lucky? Yay! I should be, I don't know, watching Civil War with Catherine in the other room, but I'm not. I'm here. So yeah, it's great. My Patreon page is anyway. So yeah, I'm going to just dive straight into the comments here. We've got Sugar Free saying about time too. Alex Morgan, Trump is still reluctant, yes, but soon he'll also be redundant. And Trump, the extra from Death Becomes Her. This Mel Streep, was it? And Death Becomes Her, or Glenn Close? I always get them two mixed up. I think it was. And Cher was sharing it. No, I don't know. I'm talking bollocks. Anyway, they fell down the stairs because they drank this Goldie Hawn. Yes. They drank this stuff and basically made them immortal, but they could still damage themselves. So they just all kind of like plastic and just all got makeup on to cover all the cracks in their faces where they've fallen down the stairs, etc. So yeah, good call. Tom Mung. Now the Senate Republicans are threatening Biden's cabinet appointments. Obama administration all over again. Yeah. They need to make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states, they just need to do that immediately. Just budget through. Like literally stop Republican, all you need to do is stop 2 Republican senators getting to the vote somehow. Do you know what? Ask forgiveness later. That's what I say. John O'Sullivan says, evening all. Evening. David said, talk about bug babies. I bet our Graham looking for his Carlsberg to put up with us. I've got my Carlsberg, don't worry, I've got it. I'm not that heavy a drinker, so usually like a sort of pack, one of those slabs that you buy in the supermarket. It lasts a surprisingly long time. People were seeking meaning, something to believe in. Same with Brexit. I think you're talking about Trump there, sugar-free. Yeah. It's the thing is, it's sort of replaced religion, hasn't it? Brexit and Trump and a lot of these populists, they've replaced religion because religion doesn't really have the same pull that it used to in people's lives. Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. Sooner or later, that debt is paid. That's Charlie Nelson, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the debt's going to be paid with Brexit. We saw today they were testing the Channel Tunnel. The Channel Tunnel for January, for when they're going to have to check everything. And there was a queue of lorries going up the M20, and it was 5 miles long, and that was just a test for the Channel Tunnel, not for the ferries, just the Channel Tunnel. That's one hell of a debt to pay. Charlie Nelson, did you see Daniel Hannon's passport tweet from today? Yes, Daniel Hannon, privately educated, of course, millionaire, of course, gobshite, of course. Daniel Hannon, absolute shit of a man. And I can't really call him a man, can I? What can I call him? He's a shit of a slug. And he posted today a blue passport. This is the ticket to freedom or some such bullshit. And I'm like, yeah, it used to be. It used to be one of the most powerful. It used to be the joint most powerful passport in the world. At one time, it was better than an American passport. In fact, it was a lot better than an American passport because with an American passport, you had trouble getting into Cuba. Well, not really. If you got there, they were like, yeah, well done. But if you were trying to get there from America, they'd be like, where are you going? You'll be Cuba. And they'd be like, I know you're not. So having an American passport wasn't that good. You couldn't go to Mauritania for a while. I don't think you could go to Libya. There were quite a few countries in the world where there were people trying to go to every country in the world, and they were American, and they couldn't because Iran was like, nah, sorry, see you later. But yeah, Daniel Hannon, it's now down to the 6th best passport in the world. And it's probably going to sink even lower if we leave the EU without a deal. But it used to allow you to live and work and retire and get married, etc. in 31 other countries. 31. And now it doesn't. Thomas Page says, all eyes on the 2 Georgia runoffs in early Jan. Yeah, look, even if they only win one of them, which would be weird, wouldn't it? But if they won one of them, that would be... I think that would be enough because that would mean you just have to stop one senator, wouldn't you, to get into the Senate and just win the vote. Oh, no, it would be a tie. It would be 49-49, wouldn't it? And then who gets the deciding votes? Kamala Harris. Yes. But yeah, Georgia, if I was the Democrat Party, I mean, everything hinges on them getting Georgia. These two senators for Georgia, if they get both of them, then that's it. It's game over for Trumpism. If they only get one or they don't get any, we're going to have just more years and years of this because of the filibuster rule, because basically everything in the last 20 years that has tried to be done by a president has been blocked in the House. I mean, for fuck's sake, Trump, right? Get this. Trump tried to bring in some kind of Affordable Care Act to replace Obamacare or abolish Obamacare. And even though at the time it was a Republican presidency, a Republican House of Representatives, and a Republican Senate, didn't get through. Because all it is about obstructionism and domestic politics in America. That's why nothing gets done. And that's why a lot of things in America are like weirdly behind the times. Like it took everyone in America a really long time to get mobile phones. Did you know that? Like everyone in Europe had a mobile phone. Everyone, the little babies were like coming out the maternity ward with a mobile phone, and Americans were like, "No, what's a mobile phone? I've got one in my car." It was a very strange time, late 90s. Don't know if you were there. I was. Blumdorf is saying hello, sugar free. Oh, that's someone else. I think you talking to me. 5 miles of fun. Yeah. think he's awake. Me? I am awake. What? Are you talking about someone else? Plum Duff says, so New Year's Eve, what are we going to sing? January the 1st, hardly going to be Happy New Year, unless you like Isolation and Brexit. You couldn't make it up. Yeah, Plum Duff, you're absolutely right. What should we sing on January the 1st? Things Can Only Get Better by D-Ream. It's a terrible song. I hate it. No, I'll have to think about that. Hannon is a pound shop. Francis Urquhart. That's Charlie Nelson there with a reference to the British version of House of Cards, not the American version. You know, I'd like to take a few people to task about Trump. First of all, Bo Williamson, I think, was the guy who did the American House of Cards with what's his name? Kevin Spacey, renowned sex pest, Kevin Spacey. In this sort of reimagining of a story about a conservative MP, Francis Urquhart, who basically murdered his way to the top and became prime minister, and then was eventually murdered at the behest of his wife to protect his honor or something weird. I don't know. Spoilers, sorry. They transposed it over to America, and instead of making it a Republican, like would be the analog with a conservative in the UK, and I know American politics is a lot more right-wing than British politics. Well, it was, but that's not the issue here. My issue is the fact that they made this lying, cheating, murderous bastard of a man, played by a bastard of a man in Kevin Spacey. They made him a Democrat in the run-up to the American election. The other people I'd like to take to task are Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Yeah, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, the creators of South Park. These guys, they're a bit right-wing, they're a bit libertarian, they're a bit kind of like, let's make fun of everyone. Haha, isn't that cool? And I go along with that to some extent. But what pissed me off in 2016, they ran Mr. Garrison was being Trump, and they ran it as shitbag versus giant douche or something. And what it was this false equivalence, which was the same false equivalence that was all over social media at the time, pushed by Russian bots, as we know now, and Cambridge Analytica massively to say that Trump was just as bad as Hillary Clinton. And I have my own issues with Bill Clinton, especially being a huge friend of Jeffrey Epstein. I do think Bill Clinton is a sex pest. I do think he should possibly be in jail. Hillary, on the other hand, is a Girl Scout. She is so boring, they looked through 18,000 of her emails and didn't find anything. That's how boring Hillary Clinton is. Her only crime was being boring, but to put her on a par with the slug gangster of the galaxy, this big orange Jabba the Hutt that is Trump, they're miles apart. She's an old school politician, and she's done very well for herself, considering she was in the first year at university. I think she went to Yale. Someone's going to correct me on this, but she was the first year where they accepted women to study law. I think she did fantastic. I think she did amazingly well. But as far as the way that they told the narrative in South Park, and for people watching South Park, and don't forget, a lot of people watching South Park, younger people might not be that interested in voting. They'll watch this and go, well, if she's just as bad as Trump, then I'm not going to bother voting. The third duo, well, the first one wasn't a duo, but the first duo is David Fincher and Bo Williamson. Second duo is Matt Stone and Trey Parker. The third duo is Penn and Teller. Now, I really like Penn and Teller. I grew up watching their shows on the Montreal comedy, the Just for Laughs comedy show. And I love the way they dismantled magic and showed you how it was done. And a lot of my magic tricks that I know come from them and Darren Brown, but particularly them. And they made it dangerous and exciting and fun and funny. And I love the way they showed behind the scenes and everything like that. But they are, again, like the guys who make South Park, they're quite libertarian. They're quite right-wing in their views. They're very sort of like, everyone should be allowed to do whatever they want. And the thing is, the libertarian movement, there's loads of overlap there with the right wing. but then they're completely at odds when it comes to things like gay rights and abortion and things that liberals want. The libertarians generally are like, yes, we want that as well, because we want people's right to freedom to do what they like. Now, Penn and Teller did a good, I'm going to say good show. They did a show for Showtime called Bullshit, and they did some cracking episodes, although they never took on Scientology, which always irked me. And they did some funny sketches in it. So each week they would pick a different topic and just basically pull it apart. They did a really good one about historical figures being holier than thou, being sacrosanct, and they just tore apart Mother Teresa and Gandhi and I don't know, some other historical figures that are seen as beyond reproach. They were like, well, actually, here's a few things they did in which they were a bit of a dick, which I liked because it gave a more rounded view of these individuals who did a lot of good, but arguably did some bad things, as everybody does. There's no one who's that good at the end of the day. Even Jesus was mean to his mum. But yeah, they had these shows, and they did some really cool things. I mean, they went to like a music festival with a petition to ban dihydrogen monoxide, and they were saying, "Oh, it's this terrible. It's a chemical, and it's in the what comes out the back of aeroplanes in the sky. It's in baby food. If you inhale it, you die." And they made it out like it was awful. And dihydrogen monoxide is the chemical name or the scientific name for water. It's water, dihydrogen, two hydrogens, monoxide. And they also did one about water, about I think it was the same one. They were talking about bottled water being a scam in America. So your tap water is regulated by the government. Bottled water is not regulated by anyone. You can literally just put tap water in a bottle and sell it. No one to stop you until you kill someone, because that's the way Americans set things up. And so what they did was they had a fancy restaurant, and they managed to sell a bottle of water that they just filled up with a hose around the back to some customers for like $50, because they had told them that it was Everest glacier water or something nuts like that. What? Why are Daffyd saying I'm 17 minutes late? I'm here. Hello, I'm here. Can you see me? I'm sure 69 people can see me. 70 people can see me. I think he's just come online then. Autoplay. Oh no. Oh, I never came on autoplay. I'm sorry. No, that's okay. That's all right, mate. I've been here all the time. Sorry, I was just slagging off Bo Williamson, David Fincher, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and Penn and Teller. Gillette Penn, Penn Gillette and Teller. Yeah, they had the show, and a lot of it was good. But they did these really annoying segments where they would interview someone who was kind of put forward as someone from a scientific background, but they fucking weren't. They were from the Koch Institute, as in the Koch brothers, not the porno. The Koch brothers, the two richest and possibly most evil brothers in America. The equivalent to, is it the Barclay brothers in the UK? Yeah, they were a bit like them. And they have this thing called the Koch Institute, which isn't as exciting as it sounds. It's actually just a think tank, a right-wing libertarian think tank that pushes a load of dirty money towards the government with all these basically scam surveys and scientific research that they do in order to basically further their agenda, which is to pay no tax, which is the ultimate goal of every libertarian, is to pay no tax. They believe tax is theft. They don't believe in a society. They just want everyone to look out for themselves, hugely individualistic, and that pisses me off. We live in a society, we live in a community. If we don't live properly as a society, then you'll have tens of thousands of people dying of a disease that they don't need to die of. Oh shit. Oh, that's just literally happened, hasn't it? Oh. So you can see why that annoyed me. So them supporting the Koch Institute, getting them on the telly, sort of giving them any kind of credibility, that's also fed into the triumph of Trump in 2016. And I think people need to take responsibility for this and say, sorry, guys, I really fucked up there. Now, the South Park guys, to their credit, in the coronavirus special that they did, they actually addressed this, and they ended the episode with no false equivalency. It was literally Mr. Garrison as Trump, flame-throwing their only hope of stopping COVID and then saying no one's going to stop me unless you vote. Wink at the camera, and obviously they were saying, please don't vote for this guy, he's a monster. And it was like, finally, take a side. But for those of us back in 2016 who were screaming this about Brexit, who were screaming this about Trump, now we're feeling like, I really wish you had taken this seriously at the time, and the damage that has been done because of the creative choices that you made in what you were making. So David Carey, that's why I was talking about Penn and Teller, because they use the Koch Institute a lot in their Showtime TV show bullshit, which otherwise was pretty good. There was some really good bits in it. Sugar Free, I went to Uni of London, early 2000s, heavy postmodern approach. I think that approach has been twisted into things like moral equivalence. Yeah. And there's also moral relativity, isn't there, where we look at another country that's doing something absolutely horrific and we go, well, that's just their culture, which is bullshit. We don't stand for this when it comes to stuff like murder. We don't stand for it for cannibalism. We actually went around when I was traveling around the South Pacific Islands, there's quite an interesting sort of dynamic with people's attitudes towards cannibalism. Half the people I met thought it was hilarious and it was just like something funny they used to do in the past, like we feel about putting children down coal mines and up chimneys, and the other half of the population would be absolutely mortified that this used to go on, like, I don't know, putting children down mines and up chimneys, and it was this kind of like thing where you would try and gauge a situation whether you could make a joke about cannibalism in the South Pacific, but if you're in good company and they made a joke about it first, it was usually all right, but generally speaking, it was not a good idea to just assume that everyone would find a cannibalism joke funny. But the point is, the British and other nations went around the South Pacific and told people to stop eating people. They went, look, got to stop this. We're not having this anymore. And I'm not religious, but I do. I've got to admire the stones on these mad-ass missionaries who turned up in Tuvalu and what's now Tuvalu and Fiji and Samoa and Tonga with nothing but a Bible and said, hey, have you thought about not eating people? And like, obviously half of them were eaten, but they kept going until they got the point across. The point is, there are certain morals that are universal. And if we're going to just look at the world and say, we are all one human race, there's only one race, it is the human race, and there's different varieties of the way people look and the way they may act, but there are certain intangible, not tangible actually, but say intangible morals that are evident across the world, because society can't function in a society in which murder is okay, in which it's perfectly all right to nick other people's stuff, in which if you rape someone, you get away scot-free. We find this time and time again that around the world, even places that hadn't been touched by Christianity or by Islam or by Buddhism or by Hinduism, they still had these rules. The basic one is don't kill people, because society falls apart if you try and do that. So what's a better use of money, feeding hungry children, or the Brexit festival for the thick? I think the Brexit festival is going to be the most depressing festival on earth. Someone called it the literal shit fest. You've been waiting for it. It is the shit fest. Chubby says Coca-Cola did bottle tap water. It failed in the UK, but as far as I know, it's still on sale in the US. They add minerals to taste. Yeah, it's called Dasani water, and it is just tap water, Peckham spring water. And they got into trouble in the UK because they added bromine. The bromine levels were too high, I think. Hi, Graham. Trump has exited the Clear Skies Treaty. Basically, he is right now dismantling the 2 planes that fly over Russia and report back up to us what the rest of them are doing. Yeah, I mean, he's just a nightmare. He's just on the phone to Putin going, what do we need to do in order to get to Russia? He will be there. He will be in Russia. I guarantee it. By 12:01 on January the 20th, he will be in Russia. Watch this space. Trump should be in prison. Yes. But he's going to Russia and not much better. Oh, sorry. Joke. Russia's a lovely place. Just don't be gay. Kevin Haggerty's saying he has closed any financial channels to Biden being able to build new ones. Putin really did cover all of his bases when he got Trump elected. Yeah, you're right, Kevin. And it's disgraceful. I mean, it is so evident of what's happened here. And yet people are chasing these QAnon theories and bullshit conspiracies. And you're like, look at this. There's actual solid evidence for it. And they're like, no, jet fuel can't melt steel bars more, and you're like, oh, for Christ's sake. What is it with conspiracies that they suddenly become less interesting when there's actually concrete evidence of them? It's a weird human quirk. It really is. Going down, relativism, whataboutery. No, it's not quite the same though, is it? Because it's not whataboutery. It's like, this country's doing something terrible. Should we do something about it? No, it's just the way they are. I was thinking about this today because obviously the Arab, not the Arab, but the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, obviously it's this huge thing in British politics. Weirdly, because other conflicts are not in the same league, anywhere near the same league. I don't see the same vitriol against Putin from the left for funding al-Assad to basically wipe out so many people in Syria, in Aleppo and in Homs. This isn't even talked about really, but obviously the Israeli and the Palestinian thing is. And people go, what side are you on? What side are you on? Are you on the Israeli side or are you on the Palestinian side? And I'm like, well, I'm actually on both their sides, and I'm on the side of peace. I don't want to. You don't win a war. So you don't win a war. You don't stop a war by going in on one side. We've tried that. We've tried that all over the fucking world. And for the one time that it works in Sierra Leone or Korea, I can't even say Korea because Korea was just split in two. Didn't even really work there. You've got a ceasefire. The Korean War hasn't ended. It's not a way to stop a conflict, especially a civil conflict. If you want to stop a civil conflict, you have to get both sides in a room and get them to negotiate. And that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be saying Kashmir. A lot of left wingers, the Corbynites and things, they're quite anti-Indian. And by that I mean anti-Hindu, because their understanding of the Kashmir conflict is really straightforward. It's this region that should be part of Pakistan, but it isn't because the Indians took it over or something. I don't know. And the reality is a bit more complex than that. Kashmir was majority Muslim when partition took place, but the sovereign, the king, was I think it was the king, or the sovereign of the country, was a Hindu. And so no one knew which side they were going to go for. Were they going to go for the Indian side? Were they going to team up with Team Pakistan? The thing is, if you go to Kashmir, and cards on the table, I've not been to Kashmir, but I have been to North India. I've been to Rajasthan. I've been to Punjab, and I've spoken to people from Kashmir, and they've always said the same thing to me. We want to be asked. We want to be asked. Why can't we just be Kashmiris? Why can't we just have our own country? No one asks us what we want. The Indians are busy attacking the Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis are attacking the Indians, and we're stuck in the middle, and we're the ones getting killed. I think made a really good point. Something similar. I had a conversation with a guy when I was on the bus the first time down to Western Sahara in Africa. Now, Western Sahara used to be the Spanish Sahara, one of two Spanish enclaves of colonies of Africa. And when they pulled out, it was fought over by Morocco, Algeria, and Mauritania. Is why the border between Morocco and Algeria is closed to this day, because of this conflict over Western Sahara. I don't know, there's lots of minerals there and oil, maybe, I don't know. But the UN went in, and God, this must be it's almost 40 years ago, with a mandate to secure a ceasefire, to run a census so they could have a referendum and ask the people what they wanted, and then carry out the people of Western Sahara's wishes. whether that was to team up and be part of Morocco, or be part of Algeria, part of Mauritania, or be independent. They'd rather be independent. The UN are still there. 40 years on now, they're still there in Western Sahara, and nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. They just drive around and keep the peace, which is good. But there's been no referendum. There's been no referendum. No one's asked them. Cyprus, another good example. Cyprus is a country. It's a beautiful, beautiful island, and I've been all over Cyprus. And unfortunately, it's fought over by two other countries. The other countries, the other sovereign states. And this island is now defined by its bits that are Turkish and its bits that are Greek, and arguably its two bits that are British. It's got two British bases on it, which again, it's like, can we, the people I know in Cyprus, and this is on both sides of the divide, was kind of like, we'll prefer to just be a united Cyprus. And obviously there's a lot of pushback against that from the Greeks on the left-hand side of the island, the west-hand side of the island, the western side of the island, the west side hand, the western side of the island, and obviously more from the, against it on the Turkish side. But if you live in Nicosia or Lefkosa, the capital, and you live across on the Turkish side, if you want to get across into the other side of your capital city, you've got to fly or get the boat to Turkey. Then you've got to go from Turkey into Greece, and then you've got to travel from Greece. You've got to fly from Greece back to Larnaca Airport in Cyprus, in Greek Cyprus, and then you've got to, and that's how you get to the European side. And it's just crazy. And it's one of those things where you have a stalemate, like North and South Korea. Things haven't moved on for many, many years. Obviously, in Cyprus, it was the early 70s. And the push for these places to get some degree of normality and come up with something as clever and with as much thought put into it as the Good Friday Agreement, which is a work of genius. The Good Friday Agreement is one of the best treaties that has ever existed because it makes everybody happy in a way that very few treaties do, because it makes both sides feel like they've got something out of it. And they haven't had to cede too much sovereignty in order for that to happen. And most importantly, for the people who live in Northern Ireland, it gives them the choice whether to call themselves British or whether to call themselves Irish. And that is massive. And I'm a huge believer in self-determination. If you want to be one or the other, great, you can. And Brexit is putting that all in doubt. The Union Bill is putting that into doubt. The fact that we're reneging on our, I don't want to say Welshing because that's a bad way of putting it. Sorry, my Welsh friends, especially Daffyd. We're reneging on the withdrawal agreement as a result of this. So yeah, it's the fact that the US has withdrawn all of its efforts to try and make peace in these places. Obviously, under Bush, there was next to no effort to make peace. It was just about blowing shit up. And whatever Obama tried to do, he was very much stymied by the fact that he had a Republican Senate, which just, I mean, even if they didn't have a majority, they can just filibuster everything, so nothing gets through. Anyway, right, I'm going to get back to your messages here. I've just skipped a load of messages. I'm really sorry. Sentinel Island. Oh, we're all going to say, why is diversity a good thing? If we're all the same, why is diversity a good thing? Okay, I'm saying that we're all the same species. We're all the same race, the human race. And within that race is a multitude of languages, cultures, foods, dancers, and an amazing assortment of varieties of environment, landscapes, buildings, and that feeds into the culture. And that diversity is strength. Having people from all over the world come to your country makes your country richer. If you want to look at a country that hasn't got any richer since the 1990s and that has kind of stagnated in terms of inflation, not inflation, the other one. What's the word for it that capitalists love? They love this thing. It's like basically we get richer and richer each year, like interest or something. It'll come to me in a minute. It's something that a lot of Brexiteers go on about because obviously in Bhutan, growth rate, that's it. The growth rate of Bhutan is 11%. It's amazing. Meanwhile, in Japan, which is quite a xenophobic society, it's very hard for foreigners to integrate there, and it's very hard for they don't make it easy for people to move there in the same way that you can move around Europe, for instance. And as a result of that, well, there's other factors as well. Their growth rate since the 90s has been pretty low. We were expecting Japan, on the trajectory it was on in the 80s and 90s, to overtake the USA. It was doing that well, and then it just sort of plateaued. And if immigration wasn't good for a country, then America would be the poorest country in the world, and North Korea would be the richest. But it's the other way around. Anyway, so back to Darren. To start, the Cabinet Office have contingency in place sometime next July. Yes. In my opinion, the two greatest examples of government corruption are the Flint poisoning and the PPE scandal. Yeah. So Flint poisoning is in Flint, Michigan. Basically, the water company. They switched water companies or something, and people were turning the tap on, and there was just brown water coming out the tap. Unbelievable. And the governors and the state representatives were all like, yeah, no, this is fine. I'm like, bloody hell. And the PPE scandal is beyond anything. I was looking at a piece in The Guardian today, because I'm a lefty Guardian reader, about Gavin Williamson. Gavin Williamson, it's just come out today, he unlawfully removed child safeguards in the midst of a pandemic. This is what the courts heard today. Didn't talk to charities that were involved in child protection, and basically 70,000 of the most vulnerable children in the country were made even more vulnerable by the actions of Gavin Williamson, who was the man who masterminded the A-levels fiasco this year as well, and I think also the man that demanded everyone went back to university in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, so I've just started that link if anyone wants to have a look at that now, or after I've finished yakking. Sugar free, they don't like Modi. I don't like Modi. The BJP. When I was in India in February 2002. Okay, I don't know why I'm pointing at you. I was there for a couple of months, I think. So I got there in January and I left in March, I think. I was in a place called Ahmedabad in, I want to say Rajasthan, but I don't think it is. Orissa or something? I don't know. I'll have to look at a map. Anyway, so I was in this place called Ahmedabad, and it's where Gandhi's ashram is. So if you want to visit Gandhi's ashram, you go there. They've also got some, I might be getting it mixed up with somewhere else, but I think they've got some Farsi towers. And if you're a Farsi, is it Farsi? Zoroastrian, maybe? I don't know. There's a particular religion in India, it's a minority religion, and they have these sky funerals, and they put the dead body on the top of these towers to be eaten by the vultures. It's quite a novel way of getting rid of your dead relatives. But yeah, anyway, so I went there, and Modi, I think, was the mayor or the regional governor or something when I was there. Again, what I really need is a producer, and I need to be able to go to advert, so I can go, I've got an idea here, I want to talk about this, and I can just quickly look it up on Google, get all my facts right before before I start talking. But Modi was in charge, and just a few days after I left, and thank God I wasn't there at the time, a few days after I left, there was this horrific tragedy in which a train carriage was set on fire, and loads of people died in this train carriage, and it was like a terrorist attack, and that started a religious riot effectively in Ahmedabad, and I think over 1,000 people died, and that was on Modi's watch. And even back then, sort of 18 years ago, I was well aware, as were a lot of the people I spoke to in India, what a threat the BJP was, because they were an extremist Hindu party in a country of huge religious diversity. It's not just Hindus and Muslims. You've got Sikhs, you've got Zoroastrians, you've got Buddhists, you've got Christians. You've got what are those lovely guys called that just sweep the floor in front of them? I forgot what the name is. There's a sect in India where the thing is do no harm. It's absolutely 100% do no harm. So they sweep the ground in front of them when they walk, so they don't step on any insects, and they wear face masks, not to stop spreading disease, but so they don't swallow any insects. And they're very strict vegetarians. Someone will tell me their name, I'm sure. But yeah, to have a party that, instead of saying, hey, we're more for capitalism, or hey, we're more for socialism, or it's an economic thing, to have a party saying we are for the we are for the Muslims, or we are for the Hindus, and obviously the Hindus are the majority religion in India. Yeah, not good for any society to be under sort of that kind of religious rule. As we've seen with Trump, really, but I mean, it's a bit odd that Trump has become such a talisman for the right wing, for these churchgoers. They're like, yeah, I love that guy. You know, the guy who sexually assaults women and has 5 children from 3 different women and shagged that porn star while his wife was at home pregnant with his 7th child. Oh, yeah, he's my favorite. Oh my God. Marmalina's saying, hi from Larnaca. Hi Cyprus. I was just writing about Cyprus this week. I thought you were going to say when you were on the bus to Western Superman. Yeah, Western Sahara, not Western Superman. John B. Craddock. Yeah, there's British base in we're talking about the British base there in Cyprus. I think there's two. I prefer Santorini, beautiful there. It's Chris. Gav Riley from Liverpool, fellow Scouser. Yeah, Sugar Free saying yes, Zoroastrian Farsi. I like Zoroastrians. Where's that fly? Did anyone see that fly? Oi, piss off. The Trump fly. What's the other guy's name? Pence fly. Don't forget the likes. Very good point, new Mishu. Can everyone give me a like who's watching this now who hasn't given me a like yet? Can you please quickly just give me a like? And that helps things a lot. I've only just found out that people get push notifications on their phone when it says I'm going to be live in 30 minutes. I didn't know it did that. I only found out tonight because Catherine's phone beeped and it went, oh, she says you're going to be on in 30 minutes. I'm like, shit, that must be really annoying. So I'm going to try and find some way of deactivating push notifications, because I think it's making a lot of people say, I'm not subscribing to this guy. He keeps sending me fucking notifications, the bastard. Yeah, they caught the British ship trying to leave Cypriot artifacts valued at a few tens of millions. Oh, yeah. We talked about this, didn't we, the other week when we were talking about British plunder and the Parthenon marbles, or what we call here the Elgin marbles, and the fact that Britain just went around the world stealing stuff from other countries, and they'd quite like their stuff back. Thank you very much. And I think, fair enough, if you want to go and see this stuff, in the olden days, there was literally no way of seeing these things, right, unless you actually, unless you were rich and you could go to these places and see them for yourself. Now, travel has got a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper than it used to be. And if you make the effort, you can go and see the pyramids in situ, which is good. However, and I'm going to give a little however for this, the British Museum does give a lot of artifacts back, I think, as part of the reparations for borrowing them for so long. I do think that we need to help the countries that we send the stuff to set up museums or exhibit spaces in museums where the artifacts won't get damaged. I'm looking at you, Egypt, because Egypt, I love you, but oh my God, the old museum was horrific. I think they've opened the new museum now, which they promised 20 years ago. I think it's about ready, but yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, I kind of want these things to go back to their ancestral home, but at the same time, I don't want them to go back to their ancestral home and get wrecked. So I think as part of the deal, we say, okay, well, we're going to make sure that they are safe and looked after. Jainism. Yes, Jains, that's the ones. Lovely people. Wouldn't say boo to a goose. No, they literally wouldn't say boo to a goose because it's against their religion to not injure or offend another living thing. Offend? You can't offend. It's like the opposite of Trump. It's like the absolute opposite of Trump. He just goes around trying to be all offensive all the time. Yeah, the Jain religion. Ian Bartleting, Hitler is a cultural icon out there. Yeah, I've seen some weird things on the streets in certain countries where you're just like, oh my God, they're selling Nazi paraphernalia on, pamphlets and books and things on the streets. It makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. But they don't, it doesn't have the same connotations as it does to us, I guess. It seemed like a thing that was a long way away and a bit distant to them. In the same way that I think that in the West, we sort of put Vlad the Impaler or Dracula, we put him on a pedestal, don't we? We make loads of stories about him. We don't bother asking how the people of Romania feel about Vlad. Actually, they quite like him. I think there's a statue of him somewhere. I've been to his castle in Bran in Romania. That was quite fun. There's an episode of Behind the Bastards all about Modi. Yeah, yeah. The Jains don't even eat all vegetables. Nothing that can give rise to life. So no grains. Wow. In India, I ate something dodgy and lost 10 pairs of underpants. Why did you keep putting your underpants on, Plum Duff? Why don't you just stay on the toilet? Sugarfree saying the swastika is an ancient Vedic symbol. The Nazis used it too and turned it round. Turned it through 180. No, they flipped it. Kevin Hegarty says, how can you sweep the street as you walk and not be expected to kill any bugs? I think they may need to read their thinking. They do it really gently. They have like a is it a bosun or something? They have like a little stick brush. They just so the Pence fly is a hero. I think that's what I said. They just disappeared. Gaz Riley saying the touts are too pushy in Egypt. What's really funny is there's an ancient Greek writer called Herodotus, I think maybe, and he went to Egypt, and this is before the birth of Christ, and he complains about the touts being really pushy. So, nothing new under the sun. Predator and Reaper drones based at Akrotiri as well. I'm probably saying that. Akrotiri. That's the British base in Cyprus. The Grand Tour of failing at the Grand Prix at Western Supermare. Obsession with Western Supermare. Chobai says Elgin marbles. That was just resting in my museum. It's a Father Ted reference. I like it. Let's see. Darian says, do the British behave themselves? No. Not in Iron Napa. It's really quite embarrassing. But if you ever fly Aegean Airlines, I don't know if I still am, but I was the face of Aegean Airlines. So if you're flying over, they had all the TVs would like come down from the ceiling, and they'll show a video about all the great things you can do in Cyprus, like going mountain biking and paragliding and flyboarding, scuba diving, going to the museums, checking out the lace works, all the food and all that kind of stuff. And that was me. And I was on an Aegean Airlines flight a few years ago, coming back from Cyprus, and the guy next to me sort of nudges me halfway through the flight, and he's like, "Is that you?" on the telly, and I'm like, "I don't think I." But yeah, Aegean Airlines, good on you. Although I don't fly, obviously, given the choice, but if they're gonna pay me, I'm there. I heartily approve of this product and/or service. David said, "Does your partner share your political point of views, Graham?" Yes, she absolutely does. What's funny is when we were in school, together many moons ago, she was quite religious, and she was also in her sort of political beliefs, I think, coming from her parents. And not as a sort of student of politics. And she's a scientist. She's got a PhD in physics. She was more right wing, but then as she worked in the civil service for a bit. And I think as she got older, she realised that I was right all along. Basically, I was right. What can I say? I was right. Even when I was a spotty 16-year-old annoying git. It's not so far away from what I am now. But yeah, the whole sort of religion thing is a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit like why are still people doing this? And she's very, very, very much against Brexit and against the Tories, and yeah, she has a lot of my beliefs. So we didn't see each other for like 20 years after we left school. I went around the world. She settled down in Durham, and you know, just normal family life. And I came up here to give a couple of talks at the university 3 years ago today. And one of the talks was about Brexit, and it was going to be the effect of Brexit. And I talked to the Liberal Society, not the Liberal Democrat Society, the Liberal Society, who were all for Brexit. And it was quite interesting sort of seeing a sort of left of centre view of why we should leave the EU. And a lot of things they believed were absolute nonsense. And the other thing was giving a talk about my travels around the world. So that was quite cool. And Catherine was single at the time, and she said, "Oh, I always fancied you in school." And I was like, "Didn't you tell me 20 years ago?" Anyway, so we've been together ever since. Besom, that's it. That's what I was trying to say, a besom, because that always comes up in crosswords and you never use it in real life. It's a name for a little brush. It's like a bush of twigs, isn't it? Have you seen the series Selling Hitler, about the Hitler Diaries hoax? No. It sounds interesting, though. Marilena is saying, "I love my adopted country. The food is good. The weather is amazing. Today, I went to have coffee on the seaside in a T-shirt on the 25th of November. Sounds so good. Tom Monk says, "I have several girlfriends break up with me over my lack of religion. I'm probably better off." Well, funnily enough, in school, my girlfriend was very religious. It wasn't Catherine, but it was, and she was very, very religious. I think she's probably still is. We still keep in touch, but we never really talk about religion anymore, because I was like the school atheist. I was like the atheist mascot of the school. I was spouting all the stuff that you'll read in the God Complex, the God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. I was saying that in the mid-90s, and I was like, "Oh wow, look, finally, someone's written it down into a coherent book." But yeah, now I'm actually, I don't know whether this is getting older or whatever, I still obviously don't believe in any of it. However, it does feel like the populism of Brexit, Farage, Johnson, Corbyn, Trump, even leaders around the world, Erdogan, Orban, what's his name, the guy in Duterte in the Philippines, and Bolsonaro in Brazil. It does feel like there's been a vacuum of belief. Like some people need something to believe in. They need something to believe with all their heart that they think is above and more important than their friendships and their family and everything. It's like a higher calling, and it's probably just a misfiring of the love gene, or the love components of your head, because they'll drop everything for this thing. And it's addiction. It's very similar to addiction, because if you think about addiction, everyone goes, "Oh, well, you get addicted to alcohol, you get addicted to drugs because they've got chemicals in that, cigarettes, they've got chemicals in that make them more addictive." But then why do people get addicted to porn? Why do people get addicted to gambling? Well, because it's more than that. It's this idea that you get addicted because you fall in love with something. And I think that a lot of people, the way they've behaved over the last few years, they've fallen in love with Trump, they've fallen in love with Brexit. And if you stand in their way, you're their enemy. And that sort of explains a lot of things from a psychological point of view for me, because as I said in the podcast the other day, trying to talk to someone who has got this idea in their head that Brexit is this wonderful thing, and you're telling them that it's not, it is like telling someone that their wife or their husband is a wrong 'un. We've lost Plum Duff. Good night, Plum Duff. We've got currently reading Strong Man, a new book by Ruth Ben-Ghiat. Superb analysis of populist leaders and how they get into and hold on to power. Highly recommended. Okay. Kevin Hegarty, side story, Graham. I got together with a girl I grew up with 40 years ago, and only then did she say the same thing to me. Lol. That's amazing. Tom, I never got with Catherine in school because she was really religious. She had a little fish badge on, so I thought, well, that's no point. But we were mates. You know, she came to my parties and things. I went to her 18th. Addicted to the daily dose of manufactured outrage and the gutter press. Yeah, I shared something on Twitter the other day, which was the manufactured outrage calendar. It was for 2018, but it works for every year. And it was just going through each month and what the manufactured outrage was. So obviously in the run up to November the 11th, it was Poppy Rage. And then after that, it was like, they're cancelling Christmas. And then it was, they're Easter eggs, not chocolate eggs. And then it was about bikinis. And then it was, yeah. So yeah, Tom was saying, there seems to be something about humans that makes us susceptible to that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is our propensity to fall in love, to become infatuated with somebody or something. And there's some good pieces that people have written about human psychology, saying that, yeah, the addiction thing is almost definitely. Obviously, there's a chemical component to things like alcohol and cigarettes. And drugs, but by and large, it's like this. That there's things like not just what you're doing, but the routine of it. The routine of it is very calming for people. It makes them feel good that they've got a routine. So, for instance, if you're a heroin addict, there is a ritual about getting your heroin ready to inject. If you're into your cannabis, there is a whole ritual about it, isn't there? Like rolling up the cannabis cigarette, or doing the bong and sharing it around. Obviously, there's ritual things in there. It's similar to when you go for wine and bread in church. You're sharing it around the people that you're with. You're having that communion. And then with Brexit and Trump, the routine became, for a lot of people, going online, slagging off the lefty, woke, virtue signaling, whoever, and that became their thing. That became what they used, their routine they used to identify themselves, and that goes some way to explain why someone who sees themselves as particularly religious and has maybe even read the Bible and studied it at length, maybe can still vote for Donald Trump. Because it goes beyond cognitive dissonance. It's like, if you think about someone who has strong morals, but then they fall in love with someone and they can't help it. They're absolutely in love with that person. And if that person loves them back, then there's a chance that they will leave their partners, leave their children, leave their job, whatever, for that person, which seems out of character to anyone looking from the outside. But to them, it seems right, because in that mindset, you're infatuated, and it's one of those fuck ups of human evolution. We fall in love too easily, and I've said this before. I say it again. I think it should be a lot harder to get married, and I think it should be a lot easier to get divorced. Hashtag never married. Hashtag never divorced. So. Yeah, Steve Owen saying the 2-minute hate. Dopamine is the brain chemical involved in highs from love and addictions, and chocolate. We get cancel Christmas stuff from Fox and right wingers every year. Yeah, what right wingers? Yeah. Addiction is something to do with certainty. Yeah. K Blang's Viking is saying, "Hi Graham, are you still an activist with regards to Brexit and rejoining? Perhaps start a new no BS party with a manifesto to join the EU." Yeah, I am still an activist. Obviously, I'm a little bit locked down at the moment against my will. Well, no, I say against my will. I don't want to be locked down, but I'm not making a big fuss about it and saying that I shouldn't be locked down. I appreciate the fact that there's a fucking pandemic on and that lots of people have died. But next year, yeah, I really, really want to go hard on rejoining the EU. I think it's going to be really important for us to try and listen. I'm not a hugger hoodie. I'm not a forgiver Brexiteer. As far as I'm concerned, so many of them have acted so reprehensively. I don't want to go there, and I don't want to try and waste my time convincing people of something that they are so convinced of. It's so difficult. It's just draining. It's time. So what I'd rather do is maybe go down the path of, where's the Brexit we were promised, because then you might get Brexiteers on side, which might be interesting. But yeah, I'm definitely up for doing something with rejoin next year. I haven't completely formulated my plans with this. I've got no money. I'm not rich. I'm not from a landed family. I didn't go to private school, and I'm not in a position to really sort of launch a party or do something like that in the way that maybe some of the people who are involved in the People's Vote would be able to, because they're all posh and went to private school mostly. Yeah, I'll do what I can. If anyone needs head on a stick to talk on camera about why Brexit is such a bad idea, then I'm your man. But yeah, I'd like to continue to do that. So to that end, my hour's up. I would just like to say, if anyone wants to patronize me, I'm just going to put up my Patreon link there. I am planning to keep going with this anti-Brexit activism. Really, once we have the vaccine and things are back to normal, I will be pursuing this, obviously. And I'd like to do it full time. I would like it so I didn't have to do other work, filming or editing or whatever I'm doing. I'd rather just concentrate on fighting this thing and getting us back into the EU as soon as humanly possible. But if I'm going to do that, I'll need funding to do it. Basically, not a lot. I live quite frugally, surprisingly. But if anyone can help me out with Patreon, there's a few different tiers. It's not much a month, but if a load of people do it, obviously that means that I can spend more time making videos and fighting fighting to rejoin the European Union, which is going to be our mission for the next 10 years, I think, in England at least. Darian saying you'll have to wait till I get paid next month before I Patreon you. Well, thanks. Whenever you can, don't worry about it. Just enjoy these. Well, if you watch these live, I don't think there's any adverts, but if you watch them, it's really annoying because I try and watch some of them back to make sure that I haven't messed anything up. And there's so many adverts, and I try and remember to deactivate the adverts because it does get really irritating. Yeah, if I forget, I'm really sorry. And you're watching this on repeat, and there's loads of adverts. I apologize. It's all YouTube's fault. So Johnny Nelson says, I used to like Cameron before 2017. When we eventually join the EU and have to take the Euro, Schengen, etc., Gabon are going to lose their shit big time. We won't have to that's a discussion for another day, but when we rejoin the EU, it will be different, but there'll be things that we'll have a bit of wiggle room on. We need an English Parliament. Welsh, Scots, Ulster have theirs. Yes, I agree. Cheers, Graham. Another great one. Oh, thank you. The tide is turning. Oh, I don't know about that. Getting addicted to your fireside chats. Yes! Someone's got addicted. I need a fire. I've got no fire. Okay, ta-ta for now. It's been great chatting with everyone, and I really appreciate your contributions to the show. And obviously, I'm going to be doing this every night of lockdown until, I don't know, it's the weekend after next or something. So enjoy while you can. And then after that, I'm planning to do a new show. I haven't decided the format yet or what it's going to be, but yeah, if you sponsor me on Patreon, it will give me a few more options in terms of putting it on lots of different platforms at once, which would be good. And possibly having it as a podcast so you can just listen to it in your car and you don't have to look at my face. Yeah! Okay, until next time. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.